At this time of year, every day is busy. There's no such thing as a day we're not busy. And every time I think we're caught up on something, something else comes along. Now today, all the paint is drying right under the heating vent. And I think it's safe to say these panels, and I've done this panel over and over and over until I was satisfied with it, I think it's safe to say we have a matched pair of really nice panels. It should be really nice when we actually lay out the paintwork, the ladders. But we have reached the watershed. The watershed on Steve's job is that Steve needs to break away from his job. And we need to lay out the tape, which is the next step on this. But it's nice to be at this watershed and being in a nice warm cellar on a day that it's just hovering around freezing out there. Now, among the things that are on my maintenance list, I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 6 tires to install. But I had a little scam I wanted to try today. Since it's so brutally cold outside and so nice and warm down here, especially under the heating vent, I thought what I'd do is I'd pull a wheel off the motorcycle and let it sit here overnight before I change the tire. So typically every day I have about a 4-hour window of time. I look at the weather and I try to see what can I do and how efficiently I can do it. It's kind of challenging at times. And I'm always trying to very carefully, I log all the maintenance in on all the bikes and I try to do it religiously. And actually, to be honest, pretty much all of our the bikes that we have registered, the 4 historic bikes and the 2 modern ones, pretty reliable because we don't skimp on the maintenance. But the end of last year, the last riding season, I was really riding this bike a lot, and I probably have 2 or 3 rides too many on that back tire. So I had a little idea of something I could do to make my life easier here. Now, I've posted up on my channel many videos of various different ways to change tires, using every possible way I could find anyway. And so I'm not going to be labored at change the tire thing or make a tire changing video out of this, but I do monitor the wear on the tire bars, and when those bars are getting close, and I always say I got 3 rides left, 2 rides, 1 ride, whatever. I try to be pretty careful about it too. And just as an example, this bike, I have a brand new set of tires for it downstairs, brand new Michelin Power Pilot 2s, and that'll be done before we ever ride the bike. Well, we're about 40 days into this restoration, and I'd say we're more than halfway done. We're done with the hard part. The easy part is painting it once everything's in white. So my idea was that because tomorrow is going to be way below freezing, they said anyway, or freezing at best, I thought here I have a little bit of time this afternoon, and I normally don't have these gaps of time late in the afternoon. But it's a personal thing, and I do have about a 2-hour window. So I thought what I'd do is I'll take the tire off the 750, bring it downstairs, put it in the cellar, and it'll be warm when I go to work on it. And pretty much anybody that ever changes their own tires, and I would count that as probably most of my friends do their own. Even if you don't have a tire machine, you do it with spoons. But the one thing, when the tire is cold, you could be out here, it's like wrestling an alligator in the nude. And it probably isn't anything worse in the whole world than having to change a tire with a tube when the tire is ice cold and the rim is ice cold and everything's, and you're ice cold. So I think this is going to work pretty well. Well, we'll see. So step 1 is to get the bike up in the air so I can get that back tire off and get it downstairs where it's nice and warm. And it is cold out here. I'm cold just making this little video. I just thought I'd mention a couple of things I find make this job a lot easier than it normally would be. Just get the caliper off and zip tie it up out of the way. It just makes pulling a wheel a lot easier. Most of all, putting it back. And I know people can do it on some bikes and some you can't. But it just makes it easier. And this work is hard enough, especially in a cold garage. Don't have to make it figure out some way to make it harder. Now just a couple little tips that I use, and I've used them well all the time. The parts that come off on this side of the bike, I always leave here. The parts that come off coming out this way, the spacers, the bolts for the caliper. The reason for that is once you mix them up, a lot of bikes have two spacers, one on each side, that look pretty much alike, but they're not exactly alike, can be a problem. This bike, not a problem. The spacers come off with the wheel and with the sprocket carrier, but I still like to leave it and make it as simple as possible. Now that tire is frozen. I mean, it's 35 degrees outside, so that tire is probably 35. If we were to go to let the air out and try to change it in a garage environment, this is going to be a bear. I'm going to leave that in the house overnight, let it warm up to 65 degrees. It'll just make the job a lot less labor intensive. And labor is something, if we can eliminate it or minimize it, I'm happy. Now, the next thing on our list is to get that wheel and tire downstairs, have a big hot cup of coffee, and we're just going to let it sit overnight, and it's going to warm to the temperature that the shop is overnight with no effort at all. Now, I always count that whenever I clean a bike or work on it, I inspect everything. And as I'm inspecting, I'm looking, this tire never lost air, but there's a nail, clearly a nail in there, and I'll bet you any money when I pull that out, it's going to lose the air. Yeah. Now see what happens when you run a tire right to the end, and see that's squared off pretty well. You lose the handling of the bike right away. The bike runs up on the high spot and off. You're always falling off, like surfing. I call it tire surfing. But what happens when we pull this tire off? If I cut a section out right where that nail is, it's only going to be sometimes less than 1/8 of an inch thick. And that's what happens when you pick up a nail. I don't know. You're on thin ice here, and we're usually 70, 80 miles from home. Very inconvenient to get a flat tire. Now, this is what was in the tire. I don't know, we don't have a good macro lens. It looks like like a finishing nail or something. Now, I'm curious, only for my own curiosity, killed the pole lock. It did not go all the way through. No, it's not leaking. But what might have happened is, if that tire were thinner, try running it for another 1,000 miles, it'll get thinner. That little baby nail would have been through, I'd be stuck. And for sure, it's always going to break the furthest you can be from home. In the worst weather, and when you ruin everybody you ride with, stay. Now this will make the tire change a ton easier. Boy, being in a nice warm shop. If you're in a sunny, warm climate, you don't know what you're missing. Now, as I'm bringing the rest of the stuff in from the garage, one of the things I'm going to be doing is bringing in the parts and running them on the buff and wheel, polishing all that hardware, polishing that little strut. I can do all this at my convenience while paint is drying or whatever, but I thought I'd mention something. Wheels. There's no part of a bike that I think you can do except for painting the bike. The wheels set it apart. Now, we did a beautiful set of wheels for Glenn Hanson's Ducati, and they, to me, changed the whole look of the bike. I'm glad I have a spare set of wheels for the 750, but I haven't really swapped them out, only once. But I got them just to I did them just to change the look of the bike, and they do change the look of the bike dramatically. So the last thing here on this restoration, I had thought, if I get to the end of the restoration, I still have some energy and time left over, I'll have Luciano or somebody find me a set of FZR wheels. Since I spent so much time polishing these, I don't want to do it to these wheels. I'll just buy another set of wheels and make a set of gold, replica wheels. But again, nice to have these. I've got a lot of time into those wheels and a lot of time into that frame. So I'm trying to keep that, but I would like to have a set of gold wheels too. So if anybody's on eBay and sees a set for $10, Christmas is coming. And when I did those R1 wheels, I think when I put it out in the sun for the first time and stood back, I couldn't believe how it changed the look of the bike. Also, Steve's fender dried up beautifully. That's ready for some clear the next time we have clear in the gun. So this truly is the best of all worlds during this work session. I got a couple little things organized in the shop, brought in the tools. Everything is getting pre-warmed there. It'll be nice by tomorrow. The part, I'm very happy the way the two parts worked out. That just couldn't have been better. Everything here. And Steve's job, all we're waiting for really is Steve. And we'll be ready to start putting the trim on that, the paint on that. From this point on, it's going to get to be pretty quick and dirty. Because I'm at the end of this work session, what I'm going to do is when I get here, well, I guess I'll work tomorrow. I want to really thoroughly clean this wheel. And boy, did we luck out with that little nail not going through. It's unbelievable. But anyway, and as I look around, glad I got this in the house. Tomorrow will be a very easy day. And we'll see if Steve is ready to come over and do some backmasking. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed being organized like I am here. Boy, we're organized. I feel like I'm organized anyway. I feel like I work for Yamaha. Oh, that fairing drying up there makes my heart beat just a little bit faster. And Steve's stuff, no fish eyes at all. This has just been perfect. But again, this is now Steve's massaging his drawing, and this will be the final thing. I'm sure he'll be happy with it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. And this is going to be the last part coming up very soon. The last part of our Ferrari paint job. That was a nice chapter in our motorcycling adventures.